Hey there, Average Joes. Welcome back to the Eternal Struggle. I'm your average host, JayMang. Today, once again, I am joined by my taller than average co host, TallSharkandHandsome. How are you doing today, Shark?
I am doing great. I've got my fried rice right here. I've got a couple of brewskis here, and we're back in the swing of things with a podcast today. So, doing good. Ready to talk about Eternal. How about you, Jay?
I'm doing pretty okay. I don't feel super great, so I'm sorry if I'm not as chipper as usual, but other than that, I'm doing fine.
Yeah,
I'm
that's the word I
working a
would usually
short,
describe.
unfortunately, I'm working a short week this week. And I say unfortunately because my fiance is having surgery this week, so I have to take care of her.
Oh, that's no good.
Yeah.
But I was about to say chipper is the word that I would use to describe you usually. Yeah, that's the
Chipper.
that's the
Okay.
word.
So tell me about your week or two in Eternal.
So for the past couple of weeks in Eternal, well, I guess last week we didn't do a podcast. Neither of us were really playing very much. I'm pretty sure that we were both pretty sick of running into Rakano or Stone Scar
Yep.
In ranked. Yeah, and I didn't really have anything new to play. And I love to like when I find a new deck that I like, I have a blast playing Eternal. When I have to play one of the top couple of decks to even get a win, I hate it. Um, I'm definitely a rogue player. I like to play something weird and off the wall. But so last week didn't have anything cool going on, so we didn't really play. We didn't do the podcast. This week, I found a little list that's going to be our brew of the week. Thank you to Zyrith. But also this week we had Worlds, which had a bunch of spicy lists, and I found one of the lists that was in Worlds but with different cards in it as one of the decks that I've been playing this week too. And we'll talk about those as well. But yeah, I've I hadn't really played much, so I was in I don't know like gold 3 yesterday or so, and today I'm in diamond 3, so that's good. Making my way downtown.
Walking around fast.
How about you, Jay? What's your week been?
I haven't. So as you mentioned earlier, didn't really play a whole lot the week prior. Just didn't really feel like playing Eternal. I got kind of tired of jamming a lot of Rakano Valks. The deck is like all right, but like the play patterns are pretty similar, and I just got kind of tired of it, which is kind of contradictory to what I'm about to say. Is that in the last week I've been playing Waystone combo, which is a really fun deck to play, but the play patterns are really similar, so like I'm sure that it won't take that long for me to get tired of playing it. But I really like the next level aspect of playing the deck because the deck is very consistent, and there's not really a whole lot of ways to interact with what your opponent's doing other than trying to fake them out. So for instance, when I'm playing against primal decks, I very regularly make my first market, especially if they merchant on turn 3. I try to make my first market choice a bait spell or unit or whatever. Um,
Whoa! Before we get into all that, let's talk about the deck list first. When we get to that deck, we'll talk about that.
okay, we'll get more into it. Anyways, I've been
Yeah,
really enjoying playing that deck. I actually did watch quite a bit of Worlds this past weekend,
me too.
mostly because like it was not that long. The broadcasts were kind of short.
They were short, but it was like great gameplay. Like I had a lot of fun watching the games.
Popo Tito showed a masterclass of playing a deck like Genève. I
Oh my
actually
god, yeah.
I actually had in the Facebook group, which I shouldn't have I should never post in the Facebook group, but somebody was talking about how do I counter all these Rakano decks, and somebody was like, well, Popo Tito took this deck to second, so this is a really good choice. And I was like, this feels like kind of a trap because Popo Tito is piloted the deck really well,
Yeah.
and then the person got really butthurt that that was the comment that I made, even though it was true. We won't get into that. So quickly going over what we're going to talk about. We have 3 topics this week. So we're going to talk about Worlds. We're going to talk about all the deck lists. Now we're not going to talk about every single deck list, but we are going to talk about all the different archetypes that we're seeing at Worlds, who won it, and some announcements that they had made during Worlds. Then we're going to talk about the 3 spoilers they talked about during Worlds. And then we're going to talk about the end of ETS, which we'll get into when we get around to that. So
Yes.
cool. Let's jump right into the first topic, which was Worlds. Worlds was won by Andreas. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. Playing Rakano Valks. What else?
Yeah, Rakano Valks is super popular. It's been super popular. I'm not really certain if there was any, yeah, it looks like this is all pretty similar. There might be just some different numbers as from other decks, but it's all cards that you've seen before.
Yeah, to me, this is what I would call normal Rakano Valks. Like, this is very straight down the line, like, not much deviation. They're playing 6 smugglers / merchants, and a very common market. I don't really have much to comment on this. This is the same deck list that you've probably been seeing playing on ladder ever since they decided to unnerf Ikaria, which I'm not going to say I told you so, but I fucking told you so. Like, unnerfing Ikaria was a mistake.
The deck is super duper good, and Adrius piloted it like a champ. Good job, dude.
Yeah, congratulations on your 30 grand they won.
Yeah, absolutely insane. Can you imagine just winning just 30 grand? Here you go.
Yeah, playing Eternal. Like,
right. I'm pretty sure that last place in this tournament still got $2,000. I'd be jumping all over that.
Yeah, dude. I'm sure Manus is pretty happy with this 2 grand. So second place was taken by Popotito, who I gotta say this Popotito's a guy, right?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, they definitely deserved to win this. They like every single game that they played was a masterclass in playing a deck that yes, the deck is easy to pick up, but this deck is incredibly difficult to master and play to the degree and level that they were playing. Just like it was just fantastic.
You have so many answers to so many different things, but they're all relatively
narrow, I would say.
Narrow, yes. So you want to know when to use what removal spell for what, when to hailstorm everything away, or when to just like use removal spells so that they put a couple more units on the board and then you hailstorm. You got to learn when to use removal and when to, I guess, not, or use different removal, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so this is a Genève Peaks deck that was the 2 banner market that was popularized a few months ago, running 4 Howling Peak Smugglers and 4 Aurelian Merchants. So I think the biggest digression that this list has made is I know that Hailstorm's not always a main deckable card in the deck, and also they were playing 3 Swift Refusal, which is great because I am so happy to see Counter Magic actually seeing play in Eternal, because for a really long time and for many cases Counter Magic has been considered unplayable other than in your market in the game. It looks like they sacrificed Ice Bolts for that, or maybe it's the Ice Bolts for the Hailstorms, but
yeah, not sure. It is interesting to note that the only comment on this list is in Spanish, I believe. Yeah, Spanish, and it says, "Congratulations, crack! A breath of fresh air in this tournament."
But yeah, no, big congratulations to Popotito. That was fantastic to watch.
Yeah, phenomenally played. It gave us viewers something to watch, and just watching you play and just saying like, "Oh, I would have done this here." And then you kind of like showed me up just like, "Oh, I was wrong. You're right."
Oh yeah, for sure. They definitely made a lot of lines that I personally didn't see. So, which is not hard to be better than me at this game, but all right. So real quickly before we start getting into some other deck lists, I just wanted to go through, because honestly, all these people deserve to be here. They're all quite great players. So third place was Darkest Hour playing Rakano Valks. Fourth place was Collector playing Stone Scar. Tikrit 47. I'm sorry. So these next handful I'm going to name are like quote unquote fifth place. Everybody tied for fifth place. Tikrit 47 on Rakano Valks. John Kez on I'm sorry, is this Winchest? Yeah. Winchest / FJS. Anyone on Rakano Valks, Trumpet on Waystone combo, Tony G on What Else Found Control, Eric 9099 on Rakano Valks, and then the last handful that I'm going to talk about were tied for ninth, which was like the quote unquote last place. Relwyn playing Reanimator, GT100 playing Rakano Valks, Rourke playing Rakano Valks, Norverb playing Rakano Valks, Tobo playing Rakano Valks, and Maenus playing the what is it, the Alexei like value Horu deck that he popularized in ECL.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, something like that. I would like to note I apologize to No Verb and to Avioins. Avioin. I don't know how to pronounce that, but we both are mispronouncing your names.
Yep.
And
you're
to
welcome.
anybody else who we screwed up as well.
So then let's go. We're going to go over all the deck lists that aren't Rakano Valks left. Because basically the biggest difference between the Rakano Valks decks were like maybe 4 to 8 cards, which in the grand scheme of things didn't really change a whole lot of what their game plan is.
Yeah, for sure. Understandable.
Yeah. So fourth place was Collector playing.
Collector was playing Stone Scar. Collector was playing Stone Scar. This list is pretty similar to some lists that we've seen recently. It does drop the Tazboos for something that is wildly, I think, spicy, and that is 4 Groundbreakers. Now, for those of you that don't know, if you don't remember from Omens of the Past set 2, it's a 4-cost 3/6 Sentinel with a triple fire influence. The enemy player can't gain life, and if you dealt damage to them this turn or spark, it gains double damage when you play it.
That's spicy. So I didn't even know that. It is
really spicy. It gets under and over all of the Rakano removal. So it doesn't die to Vanquish. It doesn't die to Torch. It doesn't die to your opponent can't block with Icaria. Like it'll trade with a Sadidi. Like it is a phenomenal
Shugo card. Standard this card.
Ooh. Oh yeah. Groundbreaker was a phenomenal choice. I mean, the rest of the deck is pretty self-explanatory, but Groundbreaker and then the one of In Cold Blood in the market for the obvious nod to the Justice decks out there.
Yep, and then the Vicious Highwayman in the market, which is where I thought that he would end up with his nerf that came down a few months or so ago.
Yeah.
All right,
so Groundbreaker is a cool choice.
Yeah, the Groundbreaker, that's really neat. I didn't even think about that. That's that it completely dodges all of the Rakano.
It doesn't die to Pristine Light either. Like it's real good.
All right,
it's basically a 6 power, but only actually has 3 power.
All right, so moving on to the next deck. So in John Kez, I believe it's John K. Kez,
probably
was playing FJS, so the Winchest deck. And to be honest, this is kind of very, very similar to the old Winchest decks, but they added Icaria the Liberator, which makes sense.
This deck is basically Rakano Valks, but they add in Shadow for more removal.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would go as far to say that this is Rakano Valks per se, because it's not exactly playing the same like ramp game that Rakano Valks is trying to do. I mean, it's got 2 Lost Scrolls in it, but that's it.
It's got Lost Scrolls, Seek Power. There's a Tomb in the market, but I mean,
but those aren't like ramp. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I mean, it's got Joes, it's got Icarias, it's got Rizans, it's got Auric Runehammer. It's it's
definitely a slower, more resilient mid-range style deck, I would say. I mean, it's taking advantage of Harsh Rule, which Rakano Valks is not taking advantage of Harsh Rule. I think they're sacrificing the like explosiveness of ramp, because I think that one of the marquees of the current Rakano Valks list is the it's not Reweave.
How quickly you can get it out there.
Yeah, it's that market card that ramps them.
Reclaim.
Yeah, Reclaim. It's like a marquee card that's like very often that is the first thing that you're getting out of your market to help fuel all the other things that you're trying to do with your deck. This deck's taking a little bit of a slower approach, and then their market is more well rounded, I would say. I mean, you've got your gavel, Educator's Gavel, which really important if you came up against, say, the Reanimator deck here. But I don't really know how much more of the meta this was actually targeting. I think this was just I give up one market slot to make sure that I don't lose to these random um rogue decks that people would be bringing. And then you've got
Yeah.
cards like Mokdo, which, I mean, Mokdo is just a proverbial really good mid-range card. Brel, who is a pretty big fucker. Like, she does a lot of things as far as like from a mid-range standpoint, and is a nice top end for the deck. I don't really know like if I necessarily would go for the Brel, but I mean, it's to each their own. And then your other normal targets in the deck.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the deck is good. Clearly, it made it to 5th in Worlds after, they already won one of their tournaments, right?
Yeah, I mean, FJS is still good. Who would have thought?
Yeah. Yep.
All right, so why don't you introduce our next deck?
Oh, baby.
Yeah.
Our next deck is by Trumpets. So there's a couple of different versions of this deck floating around, but this is the one that was at Worlds. It is a 50 power deck. Well, I think it's 49.
49.
49? Yeah, 49 power, which is almost the maximum that a deck can have, because you can only have 1/3 of your deck not be power if you're going that route. And it runs 5 different smugglers. I'm sorry, 5 smugglers, 4 power stone, 2 invoke the waystones, and a bunch of power. That's the entire deck.
Yep.
Now they run a bunch of banners, they run a bunch of seats, and everything else. You're trying to get into play untapped or undepleted. So you've got, what is it, 21 sigils, and then 8 waystones. And if you have smugglers out and you're going off, then all of your banners are on too. So it's really just the 12 seats that are not automatically on.
Yeah, I've typically learned that when you're trying to go off with this deck, sorry, I'm a butt in here because I've been playing a lot of this deck.
It's so much fun.
Typically you want to try to have a sigil in hand when you're going off.
Yeah, well, so the way that the deck works is, as soon as you can, turn 3, you play a smuggler, you go get Diogo. You try to ramp up to 6 power, and then you play Diogo Malaga Elons, which when you cast it, you can amplify and give the top spell of your deck Destiny. Now there's 2 copies of a single spell in your deck, which is called Invoke the Waystones. If you didn't watch Worlds, you don't know how this works, but Invoke the Waystones says discard the top 4 cards of your deck and then play the top card of your deck. Then you create and draw a copy of Invoke the Waystones with its cost increased by 1. Now, Diogo will give that Destiny. So that means that you automatically cast it when you create the new copy. Now, the only thing you have to do after that is draw the Destinied copy of it. And to do that, you just get another smuggler and go to your market for that Celestial Omen, which is a 6-cost fast spell. Draw a card of your choice from your deck. So when you do that, you draw your Invoke the Waystones, and you keep playing that Invoke the Waystones, drawing a card, playing a card. So you play Invoke the Waystones, mill 4, play a card, and then you create a new copy of Invoke the Waystones with Destiny, so you also draw a card. So you're filling up your hand, you're milling your entire deck, and you're playing 1 out of every 5 cards that are in your deck at random. So ultimately, when you're done with that, you want to get, while you're doing this, you'll usually run into another smuggler or another merchant, and you go get the card in the market called Stone Scar Excavator. That card is a relic for 3. It says, once per turn, you may pay 4 and discard a power card to deal 1 damage to the enemy player for each power in your void. So when you are milling, 80% of your deck and playing 20 of it, you're going to get the additional 3 power that you need in order to hardcast this once you market for it. And then you're going to also be able to pay the additional 4 and deal 1,000,000 damage to your opponent when you discard that power. Yeah. So that's the goal of this deck. I've been playing a slightly different version, which is not 50 power. It's the opposite. It's the 25 power, and it's got more interaction. And it wins by milling your entire deck and then having the Lethrai Soothsayer, the 2/4 for 4. If you've attacked this turn, when it comes into play, you make 7 0-cost warp spells that deal 3 damage to a target and put them in your deck. And if you have no other deck, then you just hit them for 21. Or if you have a Howling Peak Smuggler, you deal a bunch more, and then a bunch more, and then a bunch more, depending on how many smugglers you have.
That's
but yeah,
I'll have to try out that version. I've been playing this version myself.
Yeah, and actually I was thinking about swapping and playing this version too.
Yeah, I feel like, so I think that the situation that you described where you kill them the turn you go off happens maybe a little bit less than 50% of the time. You need a lot of things to go right for that to happen. But it almost always does about 30 damage. So it's very good against the problem is that this deck has struggled with early heavy lifesteal. That's its biggest issue, really. I think that the deck allows a little bit of counterplay. So, like I was describing earlier, depending on what your opponent is playing, you have to be very conscious of certain things like Royal Decree really messing up your combo. So sometimes I'll get a bait thing out of the market like a Messenger Hawk or an Excavate, which are pretty important to you going off, but they kind of serve very similar purposes in most of the games where you're going off. Whereas the other 3 cards in your market, your Excavator, your Celestial Omen, and your Diogo, are all like very important to going off. So like this deck, like your ideal like unmolested style draw is either turn 2 Power Stone or turn 3 Aurelian Merchant and getting your Diogo, and to a turn 4 some sort of Primal Merchant, getting your Celestial Omen, turn 5 Diogo, turn 6 go off, kill your opponent. Like that's your like ideal situation. I think the deck could be made to be more explosive, but it definitely loses more often. Like this current version just doesn't lose to like unit removal, but if you were to introduce some of the like ramp units, it would make the deck more explosive but more susceptible to torches and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. So the version of the list that I've been playing runs Initiate Sands, Power Stone, and Trailmaker, all to ramp you in the early turns. Trailmaker is also very important in that it gets you the correct colors if you're missing some, because the deck needs a single time, it needs double primal and a single fire to go off. And
preferably more primal for your Waystone.
Preferably more for your Waystone if you need that. But I've found myself, actually not with this version of the list, but I found myself needing fire more often than I actually got it. I found myself getting influence, screwed a little bit, but yeah. And in the market over the Messenger Hawk, it ran a display, the display of Instinct, I think it is, right? Yeah, but it looks like now they're running a Swift Refusal instead, which is great, actually.
Yeah, Swift Refusal. I was actually thinking about replacing the Messenger Hawk with Swift Refusal, mostly because a lot of people have been adding counter magic to their decks. I've been seeing a lot of Feln lists that are running 4 Royal Decrees. Like I played against a Feln list with 4 Royal Decrees and an Unseal in their market, and it was just like I just can't win like ever against this deck. Which is fine. If they want to give up all of their other matches that much just to beat this one, then more power to them.
Yeah.
So let's move on.
That deck is super fun. And speaking of the Felm deck, we've got Tony G here.
The man, the myth, the legend.
The man, the myth, the legend. Super, super cool guy. I saw him a lot in chat when people were, making fun of people's plays or saying like, wow, they really punted there. He was like, guys, this is the most important match of their lives. Cool it. Like, not everybody we don't have perfect information while we're playing this. Like, Tony G's a good guy sticking up for the people who can't really speak for themselves while they're in the middle of this tournament.
I am guilty. I'm guilty of being like that towards Trumpets, actually, on day one.
Jerk.
I mean, like, I don't mean to be mean by it or anything, but they definitely punted their the game, the match that they lost day one. They punted really, really hard on camera. They were playing against a not good matchup. I believe it was Popatito, actually. They were playing against Popatito because Popatito beat Manu S and then played against Trumpets.
Mhm.
And game one, they could have stolen because Popatito was like very aggressively bottoming like every single scout. Like they were digging. Now, again, we have perfect information, but they were very aggressively bottoming everything. And I don't really know why, but like Trumpets decided to like wait. Like they could have gone off. They could have played Celestial Omen on a turn. They had a 1 turn window and they just didn't. They waited, and I'm not sure what their game plan was. Like
I
going
do
back,
remember that. I remember that. It's because Popotito had 1 power up, I think.
they had 2 power up, but like I think that. So here's my philosophy, and again, was working with perfect information, so I know that Pepitito didn't have it, but your opponent has 2 power available, which cuts off half of their counter magic that they have in their deck because you got your 4 displays. And
Mm-hmm.
then they had 3 of the not the swift refusal, but the opposite of that, the slow counter magic that we went over a little bit ago. Um,
Unseal?
no, it was the 1 cost. He knew that his opponent, because they have deck lists, he knew that Popatito only had 3 cards available at that moment because Popatito never marketed at that point. So he knew that there were only 3 cards in Popatito's entire deck, and Popatito did top once during the entire time. Like they topped once, and that was when they topped a crest on top of their deck. But I think that when you're playing a deck like Trumpets is playing, like I feel like the numbers are in your favor at that point to just go for it. And they would have stolen that game had they done that. Again, I had perfect information, obviously, so I knew what Popatito had in hand. And I'm also not playing a super high stakes event. So, like, it's very possible that in that situation, I would have been like, well, shit, I need to play conservatively here. And it just, like, really came back to bite them because Popatito immediately top decked counter magic, like, the
Yeah,
next turn.
they top decked the
Display.
display. I
Yeah.
remember that.
So sorry to digress away from Tony, but we'll get back to Tony's list. So go ahead and give us a little rundown.
All right. So Tony, he was actually, I think he was quoted as the what was it, the quintessential Feln player, effectively knocking Xenaton off of the list there.
Oh yeah, that's pretty funny.
But yeah, so this is a Feln control deck. It runs roasts, however they pronounced it. They were pronouncing it differently between LSV and
I would
Beck.
think it's Rost.
I think it's Rust as well. But it's got Rost's, Champion of Cunnings, a couple of Merchants, and Jotun Hurlers, as well as Diesel's Office, and just a butt ton of removal.
Yeah, I mean, like eight merchant slash smugglers in Feln is a new thing, and this kind of comes back to the whole: are we back in a merchant meta again? Like, I know for a little bit there we got away from it, but now I feel like a lot of the lists that we've looked at have at least 6, because the Rakano Valks lists have been utilizing 6 for a while.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of merchants. Definitely a lot of merchants. And this is no exception. And it's got even more removal in the market here. It's got the Ice Bolt, the Royal Decree, and then Black Sky Harbinger as well.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean, like his 2 threats in the main are Champion of Cunning and Rost, and that's it. I mean, he's got the
yeah,
one Black Sky in the market, which these lists normally have 4 of them in the main, and sometimes they even play cards like Varas. So this is
yeah.
definitely a little different. I think that number one, it's Tony. So Tony is always going to bring Felm to everything and play it way better than anybody else is going to play it. I was really rooting for Tony. I was really hoping that he was going to take this the whole way, but also the fact that the deck plays in cold blood very good against a sea full of justice creatures or units. Sorry.
Oh yeah, when 9 of the 16 that you're going to be facing are playing Rakano, you bring your in cold bloods.
Yep. So I may actually play this just because I own everything. And it's always nice to come back to Felon every once in a while. Plus, hailstorms, I mean, are always good in a meta full of aggro.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'm missing are one of those Diaz's office.
Mm-hmm. So
But,
moving on to the next list, we have Relwyn playing a reanimator list. So looking through the list is very pretty normal, other than some changes. So they're playing 2 Royal Decrees, which has not been seeing a whole lot of play in this list like ever. This is the first time I've seen Royal Decree in a reanimator list. And then for the unit suite, it's very similar, other than they're playing 2 Lightning Sprite, which I believe when this card was spoiled, we talked about this possibly fitting into reanimator. So a quick rundown for those of you who don't remember what Lightning Sprite does. It's a 3 cost single primal 1/4 flying with pay 1 to twist her nipples and to draw a card and discard a card.
damn it, Jay. Yeah. Yeah,
and
so it looks like they're playing Lightning Sprite over Honor the Claw, which I'm not sure which is better, but I mean they made it to 9th in the in the Eternal World Championship, and I didn't, so who knows?
yeah, and then the only difference in the market is they're playing an Azendel's Gift. Not real sure what they were targeting with Azendel's Gift, because I don't really think that Control is very popular in the meta right now. I do know that Control is pretty good against reanimators, so maybe they were, like I said earlier, spending 1 market slot to hedge their bets against certain deck archetype.
Yeah, yeah, that definitely makes sense. And I actually really like the Royal Decree in this list because with your early units, you turn it on pretty easily. You can swing with your Sporefolk, you don't care if it dies. You can swing with your Master Cartographer, you don't care if it dies. Your Back Alley Delinquents too, sure, whatever. All those early units, you can just swing with them, turn on the Royal Decree, and then just wipe out one of their merchants or one of their Sididis or something.
Yeah, I've always loved reanimators, so I may give this one a swing. All right,
Yeah.
so let's move on to the last list of the world's event. So Manus brought the Horu, like, quote unquote value deck that was popularized by Alexi from ECL. So in case you guys don't remember what this deck is, because I don't blame you if you don't, it's a deck that basically just uses a bunch of cards that synergize to create and generate value. So like you've got your Crown Ross, Jesus, I can't speak. Crown Watch Press Gang is getting your Gust Riders / Cliffside Porters. So you're either getting your Gust Riders so that you can draw 2 and discard 2, which they play cards like Privilege of Rank and a lot of other Echo cards. Or you get your Cliffside Porter, which I mean has Echo itself. And then it plays cards like Whispering Wind, which allows you to turn these like little dorks into bigger cards like Hojin, Rhyme Conclave Smuggler, Winchest Merchant, Jotun Hurlers. So obviously Jotun Hurler would be in this list because it's generating a card through Fate. It's playing Sididis, which why not? Sididi draws you cards and it's your top end. 1 Telut. Playing 4 Defiances, 2 Ice Bolts. The spells getting a little weird here. You got 2 Unstable Form, 1 Herald Song.
I think Unstable Form is actually pretty phenomenal. In addition to giving you card value, it counts as 2 cards because it has Echo. It's a 1 cost pop your opponent's Ikari as Aegis.
Yeah, no, you're right. That definitely makes sense, and like the card generation definitely fits into what this style of deck is trying to do. 2 Vanquish, 3 Privilege of, or I'm sorry, 4 Privilege. Jesus, tongue tied, man. Privilege of Rank, which is powered by the Honor of Claws, the Herald Songs, the Gust Riders, and then 3 Harsh Rules, which, man, I always find it incredibly odd that people play Harsh Rule in these like unit centric decks, but to each their own.
Yeah, I mean, Harsh Rule is a great card to have for when it's like a panic button. If things start going out of hand, getting out of hand, you just Harsh Rule. And, you can plan around a Harsh Rule. Your opponent has to guess.
Yeah, and when you're generating this much value, I guess it makes sense. But I think that Manus was trying to shoehorn this deck into to combat a meta that like Rakano Valks. I forget what his 2 matchups were, because he ended up losing in the first round of both. But like I am just thoroughly convinced that because Manus is a very competent Eternal player and very good. I'm just convinced that Alexi is the only person that seems to put up numbers with this fucking deck. Like every time I have encountered this deck online, because I have encountered it usually around ECL whenever Alexi's decks are published, I see people play this deck and it just feels like it's very confusing and hard to play, and I just don't understand how it wins
Yeah,
sometimes.
a lot of the lines are definitely not exactly intuitive, but I've played this deck before too, and I've lost a lot to myself. So it's definitely not easy.
All right, so that was Worlds. So they announced another season at Worlds, but we don't really have a whole lot of details on exactly when it starts, other than that it's like the next month or possibly two. I don't. I think they said next month, but I also think they may have said September. So don't quote me on that for sure.
Got it.
And yeah,
Jay says it's going to be September 20th.
that's exactly what I said. Um, so, and then the only other thing that they said at Worlds or let us know at Worlds was that the Switch release is supposed to come in the next couple of months. Who fucking knows when that actually will come out?
Yeah,
But
Jay says it's going to be September 20th.
that'll be really cool to see it on the Switch, especially since I am currently going through all of my old Magic cards that are from Standard Past and finding a lot of value cards and shit, and like gonna trade them in and get myself a Switch plus cash because it's gonna be a lot of money.
Nice. Nice,
Yeah.
nice, nice.
Did you? Okay, so quick aside for the Magic players out there, I have a playset plus a foil Sensei's Divining Top, which was banned in Legacy like 2 years ago now, I think it was. And they tanked in value after they got banned. But thanks to you EDH players out there, they're back up there, baby. And I'm going to sell them because that's never getting unbanned in Legacy.
Was that did you have like a foil one from the original set or from the new set?
No, it was the from the vault exiled. So it's got like
Oh,
that
okay,
weird
okay.
foiling that some people like. I like the from the vault foiling, but I know that other people don't.
Well, the From the Vault exiled ones are really hard to come by because they had I think they had a lower print run than anything else. I don't know.
Hmm.
I'm completely making shit up, but I know that they're one of the few From the Vaults that are more expensive than the others. Like the Dragons one is worth nothing. The Annihilation is worth nothing.
Hmm. All right. But yeah, so like I just found a ton of cards and I'm going to get myself a Switch and I hope to play Eternal on it. Let's move on to the next topic and get off of Magic. So we're going to talk about the three spoilers that they talked about at Worlds. And starting right off the rip is Uldra Veil Ripper. It is a 2 shadow, 6 cost, 7/5 that says summon, play 3 units with shift from your void and shift them. Or Entomb, play 3 units with shift from your void and shift them. And it's a radiant, I should mention.
Oh my god, I love when cards do really stupid and broken things. That was my happy dance. If you couldn't tell that I was doing, for people who are actually watching, I was dancing like an idiot with just my shoulders. I don't know. So this card seems really cool. It seems like there's going to be some kind of a reanimator strategy with shift units, and this I can picture this with that Sentinel, where when you shift it, it deals 5 damage to something.
Yeah, okay, I get that. I don't want to downplay the card very much because I felt like Pledge was a shit mechanic that obviously became a very good deck. So it's very possible that Shift, now I wouldn't call Shift a quote unquote shit mechanic, but like I think that Shift, when we first learned about Shift, it was like we thought about it in a different way than it ended up being. It ended up being more of a utility thing and less of an actual strategy, and this makes it more of a strategy and less of a utility thing.
Yeah, yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what people do with this, if anything. And also it'll be interesting to see how they release this.
Ah, yes. So that is very important to mention is that we are getting another quote unquote set. Who knows what it actually is because they don't give us any fucking information yet, at least as of this recording on Monday, July 15th. So I'm sure when I post this tomorrow, they're going to post exactly what how we're going to obtain these cards, but for now we're going to pretend like we don't know because we don't.
All right, cool. And
All
then
right.
the second card that we got here is called Prey Finder. So Prey Finder is a 3-cost 2/4 Elf Explorer. It has one primal influence requirement. It says when one of your units makes a killer attack, draw a card. So this is interesting. I don't know if it's necessarily like super powerful, but it is in primal, so you can play it with savagery. You can play it in an Elysian deck that runs killer units. You can play units with killer. You can play the what is it, the trumpeting warholler or something like that. That with inspire that gives your units killer. Like, seems like it could be a pretty decent value card.
Yeah. I mean, I'll hold my reservations for the card. I don't really think it's going to make many splashes, but it's a really cool build around.
Yeah, yeah. Seems
Like
relatively
Elysian
decent.
killers, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then the third card that they spoiled to us is they're giving us a new Nash card, and this one seems more playable than the last one. So
Definitely.
it's a 2-time influence, 6 cost, 6/6 warrior that says at the start of your turn, play a 1/1 Aranha. God damn it, I am so terrible with words. Yeah, with killer. So it's a 1/1 with killer, and then summon. Put each unit with flying on the bottom of its owner's deck.
Yikes. This just shits on Mercano Valkyries. Oh
Yeah.
my god. Just
Why nerf Recano Valkyries when we can just print more time cards?
I mean, it's got to be one or the other. They either buff Justice or Valkyries, or they buff Time and give us Sandstorm Titan and all that
Yep.
shit.
This card seems pretty playable. I obviously will once again hold my reservations. It could see play, but we know that in a world where cards like World Bearer Behemoth doesn't see as much play as it used to, those slots are pretty packed tight. Like I mean, a 6-drop is pretty up there for time, and they have a lot of options for their big fatties. But putting
Well,
each flying unit on the bottom of its owner's deck is a very powerful effect and could, at the bare minimum, see market play.
yeah, I was gonna say, if I was running my mono time list that I have here, that would be the first thing I put in the market because that card is so good,
Mhm.
so good.
So I'm
Like,
looking forward to hearing how we're going to obtain these cards. What do you think they're going to do?
I think that I have absolutely no idea. I think that they could do something like announce they said it wouldn't be a campaign, right?
Yeah. So the way that they're wording it is like it's not a set and it's not a campaign. So like what I'm thinking is I have fucking no idea how else you're going to release these things.
What if they make it another way to spend influence in the store?
That would be absolutely fucking stupid if you ask me. Not everybody watches Twitch.
That's
And
true.
that would be really hamstringing a section of your core audience that don't prefer to watch Twitch.
How else are they going to do it, do you think?
Honestly, I don't know, but if they make it an influence store thing, I feel like now they're just practically trying to hang themselves.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, it could be that. It could be, they could be lying. They could just make something new that is a campaign, but they don't call it a campaign. They could, I don't know,
Yeah.
do something.
Who knows? It could be draft centric, possibly, or some sort of like
It
sealed
could be
event. I don't know. Like,
it could be a reward for friend list things, because I did notice recently that the adding friends is gone. Like the rewards for it is gone from the actual like if you log into the game and look at invite a friend, there's no more rewards on the right hand side.
yeah, I
I don't
mean, that's an interesting, like, quote unquote market strategy. I could see that. That would be, man, that would be next level if that's what they end up doing.
right
I don't know if I agree or disagree with that kind of idea, but if they do decide to do something like that, we can discuss that then.
for sure.
All right, so let's move to the last topic, and I'm going to let Shark do the dramatic reading of this. But just about an hour ago from when we started recording this,
2 hours.
2 hours ago now. So 2 hours ago from now, um, RNG Eternal announced that the end of ETS is here. It's not coming. It's just done. They have ended it.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and read his post from Reddit verbatim. It says, to ensure that there is no confusion as to the bottom line of this announcement, as of today, the ETS is finished. This is not a hiatus or a rebrand or management change. The ETS team is disbanding and putting the tournament series to rest. There will be no more Eternal tournaments run by the ETS team or under the ETS brand. There comes a time when all things must end, and that time has come for the ETS. Our goals were no longer how can we make this better? How can we make things better? And when that happens, it's time for change. The ETS has stagnated, and we need a different vision to move us forward. What that vision is, I don't know, but we hope that the absence of the ETS will prompt a new wave of positive change in the Eternal community. This is, of course, not the end of the road for competitive Eternal. The official tournament circuit now has more shoes to fill and should grow to accommodate them for sure. The Eternal Community League the ECL, Eternal Community League, will finally get to schedule tournaments at their convenience now that they're no longer tiptoeing around us. Thanks for putting up with us all these months. Finally. And I've already heard rumblings of new tournaments being put together with exciting rules like expedition setups or even the legendary return of sideboards, none of which the ETS was going to do if it kept plodding along. And RNG said, I'd like to thank the dozens of people who gifted their time to making the ETS what it was, and specifically thanks to 5 who made the ETS anything at all. Reckoner, Xenorath, TJ, Miller Tool, and Tixage. I don't know if I pronounced that right. I'm sorry. You all gave us so much. You all gave so much to make this possible, and I'd like that gift to be remembered. I'd like that gift remembered. To everyone who played in the ETS, watched us, or otherwise supported us, thank you for your support. It literally would not have been possible without you. For the ETS itself, I intend to put together one last retrospective article chronicling our best, or at least most memorable moments. I hope to have many contributions from ETS members who helped make the ETS happen. But if you'd like to write a few words about the ETS to be featured in the retrospective article, please feel free to reach out to me here or on Discord at RNG ARENGEE hashtag 5138 on Discord.
Yeah, so this is a pretty big announcement. The ETS, ever since I started playing Eternal, has been a very large part of the weekly rumblings for the Eternal community. I mean, anybody who listens to our podcast knows that we always start our podcast talking about the top 8 for Eternal or the ETS every week.
Yeah. Yeah, we talk about the ETS every week. It'll be interesting to see what happens after that.
Yeah, so personally, like to us, this is kind of a big blow because we enjoy talking about these lists that people bring to these best of 3 events. So I very much hope that ECL takes up the mantle and starts running these events on Saturdays. Because like otherwise this is just a huge loss to the Eternal community. I realize that like numbers have been dwindling and less people have been playing even the ETS, but like a lot of people draw inspiration, even if it's just copying these deck lists, but a lot of people draw inspiration from that marquee event being the ETS. So I think it's just a big loss, and it really sucks to hear because I do enjoy playing the ETS from time to time.
Yeah, but I mean, like if you're not doing your best, and a lot of people are kind of depending on you to do your best, it makes sense to at some point something's got to give, and even if it's you, if you it may be disappointing to some, but somebody will come and pick up the slack.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% do not blame them for ceasing.
No.
I mean, like you and I took a break last week because we were getting tired. I couldn't even imagine the amount of work that goes in to what these guys are doing at ETS. You and I just sit down once a week for about an hour or 2 and just fucking talk about this game we enjoy playing with each other, like with no real expectations of production value or anything like that. But like these guys actually sit down and like work on production value. They have people that commentate, like they do this degree of organization that you and I don't even like come remotely close to doing with our podcast.
Oh my god, and I've been a part of the ECL. I've been a caster on the ECL. It is insane the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes. there are numerous people that even if you're playing in the tournament, you don't ever see or hear from. Like there's the person, there's the producer, there's the tournament organizer, there's multiple casters sometimes. You know, there's the people who created the loadout for it. There's the people who, you know, made the website. You know, there's just like a million different people that you don't ever see, and it's so much work. Especially if it's, I don't know the whole situation with the ETS, but RNG seems like he was doing, or they were doing a lot of work, and maybe they just couldn't handle it anymore. I'm not sure, but you know, I'm super happy that he wrote this that he wrote this post, especially, you know, explaining it, you know, just very gracefully stepping down.
Yeah. We're gonna miss you guys. I'm not gonna lie. Fuck. Like, what are we gonna talk about? Like, this. It's just been such a huge part of our cast since we started that it feels like a loss to us as well as the community. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just a shame. Like I said, I just hope that somebody picks up the slack where ETS left off, and I just want to say thank you to all the guys that made the ETS possible for as long as they did.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. R.I.P. F's in chat.
F's in chat for sure. So let's move on to the brew of the week, which I will let you take.
Okay. So after something heavy like that, I got to go a little bit lighter. First, I'd like to thank Zyrith. Zyrith is the brewer of the week for me here. He's the person who designed this deck and has been playing it. It is kind of it's another Huru mid-range deck. It's sort of like the list that, you know, Alexi's been playing, but not really. This list has, you know, it's got the 1 Cliffside Porter, 3 Gust Riders with the Crownwatch Press Gang, sure. It's got the Whispering Wind. It's got Privilege of Rank. It's got Master Cartographers. You know, it's got Defiance, Ice Bolt, Vanquish, just like some regular removal stuff. It's got Siditi, sure. It's got Jotun Hurler for value for markets, sure. The interesting things here are that it's got Ava, Ava Islands Elite, the 4-cost 3/4 Warrior Serpent, with double primal influence. It's got flying and tribute, so if a unit died this turn for you, create and draw 2/1/2 cloud snakes with flying when you play it. And then if it hits the opposing player, it's got infiltrate, create and draw 2/1/2 cloud snakes with flying. So you can draw up to 4 additional cards off of this Ava if you play it right, or if things line up perfectly. So that is some serious value there. And additionally, it's also running 4 End of Hostilities. So the cool thing about End of Hostilities is
spicy.
It's so spicy. If you don't know what this card does, it costs 6. It's legendary. It's a spell, double primal influence requirement. It's got warp. It says play a copy of a unit, not just your unit, a unit. You can copy your opponent's unit. If a unit died for you or went to your void this turn, it's got tribute. You play 2 copies instead. So the cool thing about this is if you have 7 power, you can attack with a unit, Gust Rider to draw 2 and discard 2. If you discard a unit, you can play End of Hostilities and make 2 copies of something. You can play a Master Cartographer. You can swing with your Whispering Wind. You can do any of these different things to discard cards and then End of Hostilities and make 2 copies of something. I had a game earlier today where I had 4 Siditis on the board.
Of course.
Yeah, drawing 4 cards a turn, absolutely insane. I was at
What's
4
better
life.
than 1 Siditi? 4.
Yeah, and there was another game where I was playing against Stone Scar, and I made 2 copies of Vara that were already 5/5s, and then I killed their Vara, and then I made 2 copies of Groundbreaker, and then I killed their Groundbreaker. So the deck is super fun. It's got some very similar lines that it tries to do, but End of Hostilities always makes things interesting. You know, it's a really cool idea. And I think the only thing that Zyrith said that he was going to try and do was maybe swap out the Jotun Feast color that's in the market for a Palace. Though I really like having the Jotun Feast color in the market because sometimes you just need another threat, and having one with Aegis in the market that's like still pretty beefy is really good.
Yeah. Thank you, Zyrith. As always, you come up with very interesting, fun decks.
Yeah, my favorite brewer, hands down.
So why
Don't
don't
tell
you move on
shadows.
to your brewskis?
My brewskis of the week. Okay, so because Jay's not feeling well, he couldn't have a brewski, so I had two instead. So I started off with Harpoon, One Hazy Summer. It's a brewery in in Boston, Massachusetts, where PAX is.
Yep.
It's a New England pale ale. It's juicy, vibrant, and soft, is what it says. And, yeah.
I have drank there before at PAX East. I've gone to the brew. They've got the brewery has a tap room attached to it. It's really nice, really hard to get into. You usually have to wait in line there, and it sucks because during PAX, a lot of people are there.
Oh yeah, for sure. The one PAX that I brought Mrs. Shark to, we went to the Harpoon Brewery, but it was a severe cold front that nobody was prepared for. Like, we had checked the weather, we brought our clothes ready for the weather, and then there was a cold front. So it was freezing. It was literally snowing, and we were like wearing short sleeve shirts,
Yes, I
ready
was
to
there
hang out.
this year. I was there that year. I remember how fucking cold it was. That was really rough.
That was insane. We were standing in line waiting to get into this Harpoon Brewery for probably a good hour. Like, just standing outside. None of us were ready for the cold. And it was me, Mrs. Shark, a couple of my skinny friends, and then like 3 or 4 of my friends who are a little bit on the husky side. And Mrs. Shark gets very cold anyway, it's very adorable. I always try to warm her up. And so we put her in the center of our little group, and we all just like pressed in on her, like backs against her, and just kept her warm. It must have looked absolutely ridiculous to anyone watching while we were just standing in line to get into this bar. But she was very appreciative, and she was like, "Guys, it's really warm. Also, I can't reach my phone."
Yeah, that year I stayed at the Renaissance, which is like a block away, so it was a very convenient walk for me. That's also my favorite hotel in Boston. Whenever I go to PAX East, I always try to get a room there. But this past year, so I didn't go this year, but the year before I was the last year that I went, and I was not able, even though I was like in the queue, like literally 10 seconds after it went live, all of the Renaissance rooms were gone already.
Wow.
Yeah, the Renaissance is a really popular hotel there, though. So
crazy.
what's your other beer, Brewski?
So my other brewski, is by Dogfish Head. It's something that Mrs. Shark's dad actually had the last time we went to the pool together. It is called Slightly Mighty Low Cal IPA. So it's low calories. It's still an IPA. It is very light, kind of refreshing, even for being an IPA. It's made with monk fruit extract. I don't know. I've really enjoyed this. 95 calories, 3.6 carbs. Very, very good stuff.
You've never had monk fruit extract before? So monk fruit is like it's another natural sweetener that is common for, I believe, keto as well. Like monk fruit is very commonly used in keto, just like erythritol is. I always enjoyed monk fruit stuff. Monk fruit is probably my favorite non-actual sugar sweetener. Erythritol is like really, really close to sugar, but it creates like a cooling effect. So like when we were keto, we made these like peanut butter cookies with erythritol, and you would bite in, and you know that like feeling your mouth gets when you like bite into a peppermint?
Yeah.
So imagine that, except it's sugar.
Weird.
It's it's the sugar alcohol, because it's a sugar alcohol. It just like explodes in your mouth, and it gives this cooling feeling, even though it tastes like sugar.
Interesting. That's really cool.
Yeah. So, anyways, so let's move on to our sign-offs. Where can they find you, Shark?
All right, everybody. You can find me. The best place to find me is in Discord. I have my own Discord. Jay's going to post a link if I poke him enough. You can find me in there. That's where I usually spend my time between podcasts, between streams when I actually stream. You can find me on Twitch as TallSharkandHandsome. You can find me on Eternal as TallSharkandHandsome plus 4960. You can find me on Reddit as TallSharkandHandsome, or on Twitter as @SharkandTall. And if you wanted to find me on Discord, I guess it would be bracket TGP end bracket space TallSharkandHandsome number 3578. How about you, Jay? Where can they find you?
So you can find me in Shark's Discord as well, where I am pretty popular. Jesus Christ, where I'm pretty active. You can find me on Twitch at JayOSU. I haven't streamed in a while. I keep saying that I'm going to get to it, but life keeps getting in the way. So I don't know.
Same.
I don't know when the next time I'm going to stream is, and I'm not real sure what I'm going to stream. I've been playing Magic Online, but I've also been playing Eternal again. So who knows? Maybe it'll be an Eternal stream. You can find me on Eternal, JayMang plus 8035. You can find me on Reddit, JayOSU, and then on Twitter at JayOSU, where I am trying to post, but I'm not like super active. So if you guys have any questions or topic suggestions, please leave a comment where like either on the YouTube, in the YouTube thread or in the Reddit thread.
Post.
Yeah, in the Reddit post. And definitely give us some stuff to talk about because I mean ETS is leaving us. What the fuck are we going to talk about now on?
That's true. You're going to get more and more stories about PAX. That's all you're going to get.
Apparently. So thank you guys for coming and listening to us on episode 20. Sorry that we weren't here last week. I would say that it won't happen again, but I'm sure it will at some point. And stay average.